Hi BookTube, it's Amy, and I'm back again with the Anatomy of Bibliomania by Holbrook Jackson. Today we're on page 161 with the physiology of book-eating gourmets and gourmands. Bibliophagy should be gourmets rather than gourmands. They must eat to live and avoid the condition of those of whom he, and we've got a footnote, the he I think refers to, it just says juvenile, alright, among whom he said in solo vivendi causa palato est, men whose sole bliss is eating, who can give but what one brutal reason why they live. For, as brilliant Savarin rightly holds, and compelling man to eat, that he may live, nature gives appetite to invite him, and pleasure to reward him. It needs a strong head to bear that diet, says Emerson, of all good books. And again, that although we expect a great man to be a good reader, assimilating power should be in proportion to spontaneous power. Dryden's aphorism of the same end supposes it impossible even for a good wit to understand the proprieties and delicacies of English without the help of liberal education, long reading, and digesting of those few good authors we have amongst us. We've got quotations from Quotation and Originality, Letters and Social Aims, and from something that says Sylvae. Books, argue the critic in Petrarch's Treatise on Fortune, have led some to learning and others to madness, when they swallow more than they can digest. For sometimes the best of them are sweet in the mouth, but bitter in the belly, as St. John the Divine found after he had ate up that little book which he took from the open hand of the angel, which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. Jeremy Collier demonstrates with a solid argument in a just essay that a man may as well expect to grow stronger by always eating as wiser by always reading. Too much overcharges nature and turns more into disease than nourishment. 'Tis thought and digestion which makes books serviceable and gives health and vigor to the mind. It was sound of Neoptolemus in Aeneas to advise ex philosopha senet non in ingurgitudinem, some Latin there, tasting better than gorging for. Knowledge is as food and needs no less, her temperance over appetite to know and measure what the mind may well contain, oppresses else with surfeit, and soon turns wisdom to folly as nourishment to wind. You must, in a phrase, read, mark, learn, and inwardly digest. For as Mary Coleridge said, the fruits of the tree of knowledge are various, and he must be strong indeed who can digest all of them. She herself only learnt this after vainly endeavoring to get her teeth through the sour apple of science, to crack the hard nuts of philosophy, when all that she was fit for was to gather up the stray blossoms that fell in the spring. Dr. Johnson was able to gorge books, tear the hearts out of them, as Leslie Stephen records, with small risk of dyspepsia. Milton, the most learned of our poets from his childhood upwards, was a devourer of Greek and Latin books, of the romances of the Middle Ages, of French and Italian poetry, above all of the Hebrew scriptures. Leigh Hunt was a glutton of novels and survived to an advanced age. Hazlitt fell early upon French romances and devoured them tooth and nail. And, he adds, I made many a dainty repast of the new Eloise. Dibdin, always a mighty eater of books, fell upon Warton's History of English Poetry, absolutely devoured it, and then took Ellis's Specimens of English Poetry as a lighter or second course in the intellectual banquet. Quoting from Dibdin's reminiscences there. Mark Pattison gobbled Gibbon's autobiography with great content, and Washington Irving observed readers in the British Museum falling upon ponderous tomes tooth and nail with famished voracity. From Art of Bookmaking Sketchbooks. Grant Duff regarded Lord Acton as a mere Brorium. But Henry Jackson found that learned nobleman capable of forming a keen, sound, and independent judgment on all he saw, heard, or read. Edward Fitzgerald was a hearty though temperate book eater. He would gourmandize only of certain books, or when time with a favorite was short, as when he was staying with a friend in Bedford. He took up Boswell's magical book, a dish he delighted in, and could have sat down and read it all through right on end, but being at that house for 2 days, he could only devour 2 days' worth of it. But he believed that heavier fare was necessary in certain circumstances, as when marooned in an unfamiliar place away from one's own books. A goodly row of the Annual Register, which he asserts may be found in every country town, is not amiss. 'Tis not easily exhausted, so long as there is appetite, there is food. And of that plain, substantial nature which Johnson says suits the stomach of middle life. The Reverend Frederick Ekins tells Dibdin that although he is enjoying the bibliographical tour in France and Germany, he does not gulp his food, but takes it quietly like a good boy. George Hibbert, on the other hand, takes a delight in a solitary and gluttonous monopoly of the same book. But lesser men only imitate the vagaries of genius at their peril. A varied diet, moderately taken, is indicated by those who have brought great knowledge and wide experience to bear upon this theme. As John Hill Burton, we got a footnote here that just says the book hunter, as John Hill Burton, even Gibbon's Decline and Fall, luminous and comprehensive as its philosophy is, and rapid and brilliant the narrative, will become delirious mental food if consumed straight through without variety. Relieve it with Boston's Fourfold State, or Hervey's Meditations, or Sturham's Reflections, or Don Juan, or Ward's History, or Stoke-upon-Trent. But those who may consider the remedy worse than the disease will prefer to agree with Heath when he sings in his praises of books. A few good books, digested well, do feed the mind, much clogs or doth ill humours breed. Let us digest them, otherwise they enter our memory, but not our minds. James Howell, in his familiar epistles, subscribes to this opinion, where he discommends gorging yourself with multiplicity of authors. 2 he claims is enough upon any science, provided he saith they be plenary and orthodox, which is more than needs. Too much orthodoxy is not. Thoreau relates as much of the transcendental philosophy of Carlyle, which needs the leaven humour to render it light and digestible. The same may be said of theology, which is not easily assimilated, especially by the young, as Edmund Gosse knew, his father causing him much pain by cramming him with theological meat, which it was impossible for the lad to digest. But they are all agreed that nothing pesters the mind so much as to be stall-fed, to eat and ingurgitate beyond all measure, as many do, and if rightly understood and favorably interpreted, would support a farther claim that philosophy should be your substantial food, poetry your banqueting stuff. So let us take by proxy those gargantuan feasts or monotonous repasts, being ready on occasion, as Joubert advises, even to breathe Plato rather than feed upon him. A correspondent of Birkbeck Hill assured him that on his first appearance he lived on Mrs. Browning's sonnets from the Portuguese, and Charles Lamb confessed to Landor that he lived upon Rose Elmer, a poem of only 2 verses, for weeks. Nor is a whole book or a complete poem required at all times for sustenance. Many have kept body and soul together, as the saying is, on a sentence or other concentrated passage. As Edward Fitzgerald, who found the last sentence of J.M. Kemble's article on the government of Russia in the British and Foreign Review, 1840, meat and drink to him for a fortnight. But in the end, it is the manner rather than the matter that counts. Lockhart Scott made Stevenson ill, and Thomas Hood, wisest and wittiest of the bibliophagi, recounts that when on a journey in Germany, his good English stomach revolted against such coarse food as they set before him. But he suffered not at all, so long as he could get his peregrine pickle, and though he did not yearn towards calf's head à la torte or sheep's heart, he could still relish head à la Brunnen and the heart of Midlothian. All are, and we've got a line in Latin here, which our footnote is not very enlightening. All are happy in the luxury which they nourish by ranging and browsing among the diverse volumes of an abundant store of books. So may we approve without desiring to emulate Hazlitt, who sought to browse like a sheep or a rabbit, preferably on folios, revelling in pastures rich with fat and large tomes which he had scarcely strength to lift, folios as solid as they were heavy, and, if dull, full of matter. But others prefer to feast, perchance, upon such books as the Anecdotes of Painting and the Castle of Ortanto, which Horace Walpole sent on Christmas Eve, 1764, to George Montague, as food for his fireside. And if we cannot always avoid excess, we may recall with advantage that, as Cicero observes, it is the distinction of man to seek ever for a law of good taste, a measure for his words and deeds, as it is in the invitation to the poet. What neat repast shall feast us, light and choice of Attic taste? Footnote just says miscellanies of literature. But that brings us to the end of Gourmets versus Gourmands, that first section there. And I do have to say I was quite delighted to come across that passage about the reading of Gibbon requiring some diversity and something to ease your mind to prevent you from becoming delirious in reading him straight through, because I am certainly not reading Gibbon straight through myself. I am reading a large number of various books as I work my way through Gibbon. But we'll end it at that for today on page 165 of the book.